Thanks, Neil. Thanks, Dave, for the retro. Thanks, Neil, for the overview. And hi, everyone. I'm very happy to be here, and thanks for your time. My name is Babak. I work as the product owner for the field operation in the census department in Statistics New Zealand, and our team is responsible for the delivery of the field operation during census. And what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna share an application of the platform to the application that Neil just introduced in a real context and show you how we've used it for our, to automate our onboarding and offboarding solution for our field staff for the census operation. I will have 6 slides and I will walk you through the experience by giving some information about, Statistics New Zealand, what we do and why we do it, and then draw out a picture about how the project started and a bit of context of our journey, and then I will add a framework to our conversation to highlight the benefits we got from using LINQ and then reflecting back on some learnings and recommendations. Can we go to the next slide, Nathan? So what don't want to focus much on our organization in terms of in this presentation, because I think the experience is applicable to any organization or any operation going through a change process and have to make decision quickly and based on evidence, but a little bit of background would be, I think, necessary. In New Zealand, Census is one of the departments in Statistics New Zealand, which is a public service department responsible for the collection of statistics related to economy, population, and society of New Zealand. Census department is particularly responsible to run census program every 5 years in a project model and partner with different organizations for this purpose to deliver a successful result. As you know, census provides the count of population and connects us to geographical location, private and non-private dwellings. This presentation or this talk is particularly focused on the project we've been doing with our digital business services, who provides the solution for technology and our development work for our onboarding, offboarding process. But I think it is important to understand why we're looking at this case as a special case, or what is interesting about this for investigation. There are multiple factors that separate census department from other part of the organization. As I said, we run based on project concept model, means we are not dealing with BAU processes as other departments and teams. We have a changing environment, and our organization and our strategies have to adapt and with these environmental factors and address them in an efficient and effective way. There are multiple factors that separate census department, especially the onboarding, offboarding parts from other parts. I have to highlight a couple of points, focusing on census department use an external vendor to employ around 4,000 people in a short time frame. These people are employed in a full-time or part-time base, and since they're not employed by Stats New Zealand, they don't need access to our corporate HR system. The corporate onboarding process follows rather different objectives to what census department is looking at. They are mainly focused on creating a pleasant experience for the employee, and also they're not constrained by time. On the other hand, onboarding for census is very much about fast turnarounds and enablement as quickly as possible. The number of employees are quite different, and from our BAU process, dealing with 4,000 employees in a short time frame of 3 to 4 months for the field operation is out of the reach for our corporate environments to deliver. So we're also talking about a very complex and complicated process that connects various actors and stakeholders which are responsible or for the different stages of the process and with different priorities. Actors like the recruiter vendors who employ our staff, Ministry of Justice for criminal conviction directors when we employ people, training teams to train employees according to their role in the field, and plus health and safety requirements, logistic vendor who provides the equipment to our field staff, and our operational support team who support these employees during operation. The process eventually has to create the identities for these employees in our corporate system and make sure they have appropriate equipment and devices and have access to necessary corporate platforms such as Salesforce, our health and safety reporting, and learning management system. The onboarding platform also act as a source of truth for our employees' detail. That means any changes should flow to other systems and update all other systems along the way. Next slide. What I'm doing here is I would like to talk about the project that we have been doing and put the details that I just mentioned in a bit of a context and show how the experience may apply to maybe applicable to our more general situations like large scale operation in other sector, for example, emergency response and recovery for utility sector, which can be quite similar. So we started the project in August, September last year, 2022, when the conversation about 2023 census picked up. It is important to mention that the unsuccessful experience from 2018, particularly in the onboarding of forwarding space, highlighted the need for this conversation to address the onboarding of forwarding solution as a critical piece of work for the delivery of a successful census. This need brought a group of people from corporate and census to discuss onboarding of forwarding in a broader perspective and identify the gaps for improvement. During this conversation, Neil got involved to help articulating the needs and using the LINQ platform to sort of facilitate the conversation between different stakeholders. I would like to highlight some of the timelines that we were facing at the time when we started. So we were targeting a test in March 2021, which is now done and dusted. We are looking forward for our dress rehearsal next year, which means we are onboarding people. We should start having all of our system in place by the end of this year. And census proper will take place in 2023, which means we will onboarding people late 2022. Looking at timelines, you will get a sense of where we were when we started and the pressure we have for the delivery of an MVP for our test. Beside this time pressure, we had limited resource available for us. We had, an architect started with us in our DBS team, in our digital business services team, who was very new to start, didn't have experience with census. 2 new starters as SMEs in our census department, which made it difficult for to basically articulate the needs. We were also expecting variation for solutions. So what we were going to use for the test had a lot of manual and workaround processes because we were sure we are not going to provide the full solution for the test for 2021, and so we had to basically plan and think about the work that we need to do for those workaround processes. So this is where LINQ really helped us to facilitate the conversation among stakeholders. It gives us a tool where we could talk on visual presentation with a right level of details and discuss it with various stakeholders. It helped us to create a common language and eventually common understanding of the process, and we could make decisions based on and define our objective based on evidence and some numbers that we got from analytics. It was also interesting to see how this platform was understandable both for our business side and our basically technical team who were providing the solution for us in our digital business services. And where I would like to share some of the examples of the work that we've been doing. If we can go to the next slide, please. Yeah. So as you can see, and also LINQ talked about it. This is very in this slide. You can see part of the diagram. It's a big sketch, so I've selected part of the diagram to share with you. So working on this diagram initiated very productive conversation among various groups and customers in our organization, in the organization, and helped us to define the end-to-end process by 4 elements of, action, information, people, and systems. Using this approach gave us the opportunity to identify responsible people and actions they needed to take in the process, what had to be automated, what information was required for the end-to-end process, and also what information should be used for reporting and when in the process. Platform also provided some analytics, as I mentioned, where we could see the cost or time of an action or cost or time of an automation process. These details would provide helpful information for decision makers to decide whether they need to automate a process or a sub-process or not, how much it may cost, and what added value we will get out of that automation if we are leaving it as a manual process, what we need to do or what resources we need to think about. Although I have to point out that the details required for these analytics were not always available and easy to capture, so it needed extra and further planning to basically achieve these objectives. Next slide, I would like to basically add a framework to our conversation and see how this experience and usage of LINQ enable us to basically drive a successful change in a short time frame. You may have come across Kotter's change management model. It defines 8 stages for a successful change management plan that I briefly discussed here. It starts by creating a sense of urgency, which means developing the need for change, and this may help your organization spark the initial motivation to get things going, and by identifying potential threats, developing scenarios, and showing what could happen in the future, and also examining some opportunities that might be available. It continues by building partnership, convincing people that change is necessary, which take a strong leadership and visible support from key people in the organization, and then it moves on to form a strategic vision and initiative. Because when you first start thinking about the change, there will be probably many great ideas and solutions floating around, and linking those concepts to an overall vision that people can sort of grasp easily and remember is an important stage to make the change, to happen. And then it's about communicating that vision. You should be able to really communicate the vision with different audience group on a day-to-day basis. And then all of these will enable actions, which means put in place a structure for change and continually checking for barriers in the process. This will give you hopefully a short-term win, and that motivates people to keep going and sort of enable further change along the way, and finally institutionalizing that change and make it, as robust as possible. Putting adding this context, and next slide, if that's Neil, please. Thanks. So if I'm going to add this framework to our experience, so it may give us a better understanding about the experience and show how LINQ has helped us in some of the stages of this process. So for us, the urgency was already there. The experience from 2018 has proved that we need to sort of pay special attention to this offboarding, onboarding process. That sense of urgency brought about the support at leadership team to bring together a group of people, and conversation started at our corporate level to sort of improve our onboarding, offboarding process and create a better experience for our employees coming on board. Different teams from Census and our corporate HR came together to discuss options, and that provided the partnership we needed, starting with LINQ in separate group, trying to address the requirements, enabled us to find a vision for Census on our corporate side. And LINQ also gave us a very good platform, and that's very important, to visually create a common language among stakeholders, especially between business users and our technical team. It enabled us to communicate our objectives and and define where we were going with the project with a broader audience group. The common language and clearer requirements enable us to take some actions and have more and enable us to create more tangible result. It removed the resistance from different groups that were involved in the project, particularly our DBS team, who were complaining about unclear requirements and things like that to basically initiate the project. All of the above enabled us actually to have a quick win for the test, so we could basically deliver a successful MVP for our test in a short time frame, and that enabled us to sort of test the solution in a real-time action and find the gaps and plan for the next stage going forward and build up on what we have already in place, and hopefully we can have a successful result going forward for the next stages of the development. We are continuing to work with LINQ for our further stage. Reflecting back, if I can go to next slide, please. Yeah. So reflecting back to what we have been doing, I would like to point out some of our learnings. Facilitating workshop and conversation were very important to capture our requirements and successfully achieve some of the stages explained in the model. Finding the right stakeholder and customers, asking the right questions and capturing the requirements in an appropriate way were all critical for the success. I think along this, we realize we need some people in our organization to basically work with the platform effectively so they can drive this conversation and progress to work in smaller groups and in the immediate team among immediate team members. And I can emphasize more the importance of the continuous delivery and having tangible results along the way. It was very, very important, and it helped us quite a lot to maintain our motivation and also reevaluate the assumptions we have had along the way to basically build up on what we've been achieving and going forward. Looking for basically replanning and making it more precise and accurate to achieve those objectives. So that was the experience I think that I wanted to share with you, and hopefully that that was helpful.